The mind is a linear processor. It only can segregate things one after the other. It's exactly like a binary computer, which is zeros and ones. The brain sends less information to the heart than vice versa. And the electromagnetic field of the brain is like 5,000 times smaller than the one of the heart, to give you a little bit of an idea of. So you can imagine that the heart, from a physical standpoint, handles much more, and the heart is more in a non-linear holistic approach, so like a quantum computer where two states can exist at the same time.
Arnaud Saint-Paul is an award-winning serial entrepreneur, philanthropist, and visionary who's helping some of the world's top CEOs and entrepreneurs tap into what he calls heart intelligence. In this fascinating conversation, we explore how accessing the quantum power of your heart can transform not just your inner experience, but your business results and impact as well.
It's interesting how we are so obsessed with the mind that we focus completely our need to justify every single aspect of our lives through that mind, when it actually is less than 1% of our capacity. The heart offers guidance with that 99% that we have available if we choose to. And that 99% is only, in my experience, available to people. And I've been working with CEOs, with leaders of different companies across the world. People that are, one, have a vision of themselves or purpose, and two, are highly pragmatic and practical.
Arnaud shares numerous examples of how working with leaders to shift their vibrational patterns and release limiting beliefs has led to extraordinary business breakthroughs.
What we have proven already is that a company that embarks on heart leadership, where they not only measure once a year, but also train in heart leadership and practice it, they automatically grow faster. Not only the level of coherence grows about 10 points, but also the company gets more clients, a bigger community, and at accelerated rates.
This conversation will challenge your understanding of what drives success and offer a powerful alternative to the mind-dominated paradigm that most of us have been taught.
It's the heart of all things. We live a happier life, but also our impact grows, our finances abound more, lives become much more simple, easier. It's magical.
Before we get into this conversation, I want to ask you to join this amazing community of consciousness explorers. This whole idea of pursuing expanded consciousness and the boundaries of human potential while living a modern life is relatively new, which is why we interview revered masters, teachers, experts, and practitioners to help you on your own journey. To stay up to date on the latest conversations, simply click subscribe below and you'll be notified each time a new episode comes out. I am so grateful for all of your support and comments. I love reading them. Now let's dive into this conversation. Arnaud, it's wonderful to meet you.
Likewise. Hi, Scott.
So I thought we could start this off with an interesting quote that I heard you say, which is a little bit provocative, but also I think really powerful and illuminating. So the quote is, our mind is like a binary computer and our heart is like a quantum computer.
I said that. Wow.
You did. You
Okay.
did. And you had me hooked. And I want to learn more about what you mean by that.
It's also a bit the same thing, like, AI versus HI being heart intelligence. The mind is a linear processor. It's only can segregate things one after the other. It's exactly like a binary computer, which is zeros and ones that are going so fast that they give it the illusion, it gives us the illusion of thoughts or complex language that creates apps and all that stuff, right? But in the end, it's 0 1 0 and 0 1 0 1. And our mind is exactly the same way. It can only process so much. I don't know if you know that, but the mind brings the brain sends less information to the heart than vice versa. and the electromagnetic field of the brain is like 5,000 times smaller than the one of the heart. To give you a little bit of an idea of, so you can imagine that the heart, from a physical standpoint, handles much, much more. And the heart is more in a non-linear, holistic, I guess, approach. So, like a quantum computer, where two states can exist at the same time. The state of finiteness, right? One and zero, and one and zero, and the state of undefined, which is presence, for instance, peace. You can't slash peace or presence or love. No way. Or slash now. No, I mean, yes, you can do it with a watch, but the watch has been created by the mind and it ticks zeros and ones or seconds one after the other. But now, as an experience, cannot be measured, right? At least that's my experience. Is it yours?
It is. It is. And the other thing that comes to mind with me with this quote is just how information is processed. So, with the mind, a lot of it's like sensory perception gets compared against my reference system of everything I've experienced and its patterns, and then spits out a program. And when there's experiences like heart to heart communication or transmission, there's kind of like a complete information experience that can be downloaded in your system. Yeah, to me that's much outside of the bounds of the kind of ones and zeros approach that the mind takes. And as you start to have these experiences, it just becomes more and more evident that like the heart is the supercomputer. It is the power center. And it's what's crazy to me is it still feels largely misunderstood and undiscovered in our modern society.
Of course, and it also is connected to the definition of what we call the heart. I like to call the heart with a little h and the one with a big H. The little h is, from a physical standpoint, is our physical heart, yes. And then it's also, when we talk about the soft skills and whatnot, that these are the ones of the heart, and they seem to be related to emotions. So it can be love, it can be also compassion, etc., which are all beautiful things. And then there is another level, as if it was another octave of the same thing, that I would put with a big H, which is the sense of beingness, the sense of presence, the sense of peace, more than the sense, the experience of love, of etc., and of unity. And hence the seven pillars we have created around what we call heart leadership. And that is actually at the very core of our day to day. It's so pragmatic that we tend to not compute it, not take that into account. It's the at the movie theater, it's the white screen behind the image that we're watching. We're watching the image all the time and the drama and all that stuff, but there's a white screen behind it, and that's the beingness, that's the all potential, and that's what, in our language, we call it the heart. It's the heart of all things, let's put it that way. And maybe it's time for us to realize and that this is us too. And when we do that, what happens is that not only, well, we live a happier life and more joyful, more peace, and so on and so forth, but also our impact grows, our finances abounds more, the uh, lives become much more simple, easier, and impact can translates into better finances, more social impact, more environmental impact all the time. Just because we acknowledged ourselves completely and fully, accepted ourselves. It's magical.
It is magical. So I think a lot of people are sold on working on the heart, emotions, these things can help us feel better. But where I think there's a little bit of a disconnect is how does the heart work and focusing on it translate to prosperity? Prosperity in our financial lives, our business. There's kind of this like, I'm not really sure because it doesn't align with the way I've always done things and my success formula that I've you know, been using. And so I'd love to hear from you and your experience with leaders and your own journey. Like, how does that, how does these internal shifts, how does that actually create some of these positive things that you mentioned?
Well, the thing is, it started working for me, and then I started to offer the same method to CEOs and leaders in general, and they started repeating the same process, going through the same process and get the same results. So that was that. And these results are ones of more abundance, financially speaking, and also seeing their projects growing faster than they were expecting in the first place. I like to say that that journey to the heart that we're talking about is only offered and to the people that are the most pragmatic and practical possible. So it seems to be a paradox because I'm talking about the heart, the compassion, and all that, and doesn't seem to be grounded and measurable and etc. Well, actually, we can measure it, but that's another story. But the bottom line is, if yes, we can look at it from the mind perspective. It's always a tiny percent of what all is, right? Of all the different capacities I have within myself. It's interesting how we are so obsessed with the mind that we focus completely our need to justify every single aspect of our lives through that mind when it actually is less than 1% of our capacity. The heart takes on, offers guidance with that 99% that we have available if we choose to. And that 99% is only, in my experience, available to people. And I've been working with CEOs, with leaders of different companies across the world. People that are, one, have a vision of themselves or purpose, and two, are highly pragmatic and practical. And what I have seen is that people that are not pragmatic and practical fail at getting into their heart, literally
Mm.
speaking. Why? Because they are projected
Why
so
is that?
much. Yeah, they are projected so much in concepts or past or future, etc. They are raptured into illusions about themselves, about the world, etc., that they are not seeing what is real. They are not able to sense it, to experience it now. And the whole game of coming to the heart is actually to release all these perceptions that are elusive, that are mirage. And once we start to really release all these scrapes or layers that we are not identifying to anymore, then we start seeing our business, our life grow. And I'm not talking about necessarily only a quality of life, as you mentioned earlier, but also financial stuff. So let me share a few examples for you. Uh, I was a very concrete example talking with a CEO I haven't started to work with yet. He was telling me about his company that was helping millions and millions of people, creating a huge gift economy to help people in the mental health world. And he was telling me his struggle not being able to raise money for his company. He has a clear business model. He's already, very successful from a social impact standpoint, but had a lot of difficulties to raise money. So I said, okay, there's something there, and we started to go into understanding where does that pattern come from. And because the heart lives in the vibrational world. So it's made of patterns. It's like a melody that is playing itself out repetitively all the time until you start to realize that it's there. And so we were discovering that pattern here, and we went to the source of it that happened to be in his teenage years, where his parents were very poor, and he had at 13 trying to figure out how to live and make money for himself and provide to his family as well. So very, very difficult teenage years and childhood in general. So he was continuing repeating that same pattern of not enough, having not enough, right? Of there is no money available, and so on and so forth. And so I said, okay, do this and that, and then let's talk next week. So we talked the following week, and he tells me, I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway. And the next day, he did that on a Sunday, and the next day, uh, a foundation called saying that they wanted a meeting to see if they could give them some money. Amazing. That was about a month ago. And now he's telling me that he has a company that wants to buy for about $750,000 license. And so it's growing. It's easier now in any case. Not that he has gone through all the challenges of the world, but that part is starting to flow, right? So it was stuck because of that pattern. And now all of a sudden we've opened the door, and automatically the flow of life starts to grow, and the company blossoms further. That's one example. Another one, another CEO, another company. So in that case, in finance, their company's website had been plagiarized by another company. That's a bit of a problem from a reputation standpoint, as you can imagine. And so that's a big event. And so we try to figure out, where does that come from? And indeed, when he was in his teenagers again, sorry, it's the two examples that happened in teenage years.
It's the formative adolescence.
Yes, exactly. What happened then was that he had a tendency to be a bit kleptomaniac, and created a sense of guilt and no integrity, right? So start to rob things in the shops and whatnot, and that created that level of no integrity, and he was carrying that across years, and that brought us to that event. So we released that, and the next week, not only did they have a formal apology in a conference by the company that plagiarized their website, that you know they were discontinuing that practice, of course. And in that same week, they got a proposal for a nine-figure contract on his desk. So it's very, very pragmatic what we're talking about here. And what we are showing to the people that are practicing here, and this is our day to day, is that when we enter the world of the heart with a big H, we surrender this need of linearity, and we open ourselves to live the world as a vibrational world where everything is a reflection of everything. And when we shift something within us, automatically shifts the world around me. Not that doesn't mean that the challenges disappear, but they take a whole new meaning as a gift for us to release what has been limiting us, and automatically, instantly, starting to live the version of ourselves without that limitation. And therefore starts to happen new events that brings about the bounties and the prosperity that everybody wants.
It's a beautiful recognition when you start to realize that, yeah, these things are happening for our awareness of things that we've been holding on to, and that life is really unfolding for the purpose of that awareness and evolution and healing. And what you just described is exactly what I've experienced in my own life. And it's kind of a very, it's kind of like you start to play the game at a higher level, right? Where you think you're in the linear reality where you think, okay, well, if I do X, then Y will happen,
Mhm.
right? And that actually is to some extent can be true. And, but there is this kind of like higher plane of like understanding like why life is unfolding the way it is and how it is a giant reflection and mirror. And as you can kind of work on those that there's inner components in consciousness, like the reflection will change.
Mhm.
And it's a much more fundamental way to approach life and also be happier.
Exactly. It's completely life changing. And more so, I understand that in your audience, there are a lot of entrepreneurs, and they are the most amazing beings in the sense that they are actually, through their entrepreneurship, facing themselves every day, with very much intensity. And all the different challenges they are meeting are just a reflection of themselves. And that's the thing. So, what does that mean? It implies that every single business challenge you may encounter is never, ever, ever about business. It's always about who you believe to be and what is the truth that you want to embody in this moment and what is your new choice. And these challenges are coming only for you to look at them and see what is the new choice you're making. And that's the thing. That's why I created this heart leadership community and why we work with companies, because companies are the cradle where we can actually make a difference for ourselves, for the world in general, and more importantly, release everything that is limiting us so that our vision can happen faster. And with impact, with, again, financial, social, environmental impact. So why not doing it? Because it's better, faster, easier.
Agreed. And guess what? If you don't face these things, they just keep happening. That's been my experience.
Exactly.
It's like you're just it's on a rerun until you finally get the lesson. And what I actually also appreciate about what you said about people that tend to go on this path are practical and pragmatic. At a certain point, when you realize, when you kind of key into what's going on, working from the inside out just becomes the intelligent thing to do. It's not even about feel good. It's just like, hey, look, I know I'm going to have to keep going through shit in the same situation until I face it.
Hmm.
Like it's just the smart thing to do.
Exactly. Exactly. And,
S-
at some point, it becomes the only way to do that. Well, there's another stage where you don't need to do that anymore. But at first, it's what I call the experience of the vibrational world, in the sense of living every single circumstance as a gift and being led by it towards more of you, towards a better embodiment of you, at the very least, from a very pragmatical standpoint. And therefore, I perform better, and therefore, everything starts to happen faster, and so on and so forth.
it seems like this idea of, using life as a mirror for personal transformation and the journey to the heart is kind of a core part of your heart-led leadership model and program. What other main ideas are there that are fundamental for leaders who want to embody this paradigm of moving through life from the heart?
I hope you're enjoying this conversation so far. If you like what you hear, let me know by clicking like, subscribing to the channel, and responding with a comment around something that you found interesting in the conversation so far. In addition to these videos, I do a lot of writing on the exploration of consciousness and my own personal revelations in my newsletter called Consciousness: The Doorway to Human Evolution. To receive these updates and more, all you need to do is simply head to the link in the description below and you'll be added to the community of 20,000 plus consciousness explorers receiving weekly ideas and inspiration in their inbox. I look forward to hearing from you there. Now let's get back to the show.
We encoded to help people to understand better the journey, 7 pillars: presence, inner peace, inner joy, non-attachment, selflessness, unity, and purpose. And we created an assessment available on our website where you can take it and assess what is your score level, your level of coherence related to these pillars. This is once we start to nurture these pillars, it helps us to become more and more aware of ourselves. Indeed, the very first awareness, and more importantly, the very first experience to go towards, is this space of vibration, as you mentioned, that eternal mirror around ourselves. But it starts to be grounded in more presence, here, now. That's essential, right? Because without that presence, I cannot even fathom what we are talking about that mirror that's bizarre. Can they say that? It's not scientific and all that stuff. Well, actually it is, but that's another matter. That's quantum physics, so we don't want to go there. That's too complicated. But presence, being here and now, is what any human being should be able to do, in theory. In practice, we tend to forget it most of the time. And from that place of being here now, then we can make choices that are a bit more aware or enlightened towards our business, towards anything in life in general. The same goes with peace, with joy, with that sense of unity, with purpose, finding our own purpose and being able to live it more than an intellectual concept. So how can I live my vision now? So these are simple premises that feels very complex from a mind perspective, because we're still attached with all the different circuits, so to speak, or different processes that the mind likes to create, the complexities. And we have to go back to a certain simplicity of what life is, which has always been about the now. Where nature doesn't have any other concept than now. But for some reason, the human likes to create all these beautiful complexities that we thrive on, and that's okay. So another premise, a core premise, to continue on your question, is the moment we understand and we live from a place of everything is an eternal mirror, we also understand and live that any single shift that I may do within will automatically be reflected without, meaning in my external reality. That's super powerful, because before, if you remember, we were in the paradigm where what is outside of me, I cannot control, I cannot do anything about it, I'm the victim of it, etc., etc. And now we're completely at the opposite of that. That's the journey on which we are, where we realize who we really are at the very core, and more importantly, from what place of truth, of presence, of joy, of peace, etc., we can create. Because once we have looked at the world as this eternal mirror, as you mentioned earlier, very aptly, then now I can create with it. I can set an intention. I can start dancing with that world around me. I can start building new things that I hadn't imagined first. And that happens as I get into more coherence with myself. And that's the second stage of heart leadership. But again, let's be pragmatic and practical. And that pragmaticality is not necessarily the one of physical science, like the usual physics. It's more of the quantum reality. It's more understanding that there can be paradoxes. There can be two states of the same thing. And that is happening in my day-to-day now. It's being able to have two different point of views of the same event. It's opening up to different aspects of the same reality. That helps me to realize that there's a choice here that I made that I don't need to do anymore, like the examples I was sharing earlier. In this case, they they happen to have been working with me or cross our path, and I was able to show them, to guide them in that new choice that they could do. Technically, I'm not needed. We all have that ability. It's usually easier to go do it with a peer, obviously, and that's why I created the Heart Leadership community. But it is really a journey towards ourselves, and it's for us to decide, what do we want to continue living, as you were saying earlier. Do we want to continue the same pattern or not? Right? I know my choice, but what is yours? Well, I know your choice as well, but
I don't want to keep the reruns going. I've had enough in many instances. But yeah, I mean, everything you're saying is really resonant. And I just wanted to double click on that there's a cool thing that I've noticed that seems to be aligned with you, where you realize, the recognition of the mirror, and you realize, like, wow, like there is a reflection and I have some agency, and it kind of turns all the manifestation stuff on its head a little bit, where it's like, well, actually, I realize this isn't as much about doing some technique right. It's kind of like reality is always manifesting my inner world. And really, I need to just use reality itself to understand my inner world so that I can then bring more intention to it, more
yes,
agency.
once you have that understanding, definitely, yes, that's already an advanced understanding.
If someone listening to this is like, okay, this sounds really cool, but I'm in my head, I know it. How can I start to move into this paradigm? Where do you typically direct people or start to work practices they can start to do?
Well, I would direct them to our assessment, because once we have a fair understanding of what their coherence level related to the seven pillars I mentioned, then there are some tips that of what I can do to start on the lowest pillars, the ones that are weaker yet. Your question is so wide in terms of what we can start with. I guess one thing that I have seen in any case for anybody on the planet that helps in that direction, beyond what I just said, is to ground ourselves more and more and more, as much as we can. Grounding means having more presence to our body. It's to maybe, have physical practices, yes, and just trying to walk barefoot on the grass for 20 minutes every day and embrace a tree and that kind of stuff. Things that are simple allows us to be here now. Maybe it's playing piano, that works too, or gardening, that works too. And so, but these are just mere examples. And as we do that, then there's a natural tendency of being here and now through the physical world in this case, which helps to quiet the mind, to maybe open up to meditation, and so on and so forth. And so all the practices that you already have read and watched related to mindfulness, to yoga, and so on and so forth are all good. There's not one path, there are thousands of paths. The truth is, for us to become completely and fully aware, which is what the journey we're describing so far, it starts with becoming aware of our physicality and you know uh, again, not being up there, just being here. If that makes sense. That's a great step.
I think that's really wise advice. You know, one of the things that I'm curious to ask you about is I know that you've put a lot of thinking and energy into things like what does the future economy look like? What does a heart based economy look like? And I'd love to learn more about how you think things will evolve and what a new way of leading and doing business and transacting might look like in the future.
Uh, well, I don't know how it will evolve. I can only offer the vision that I would love to see and experience. And it's this reality of heart-led leaders of any kind, that whether they have companies or they are working companies, that are not only part of the same self-recognized network, right? Or decentralized network, if we want to call it that way, it doesn't really matter. The bottom line is we talk the same language. We live that same vibrational world together, right? And then from that place, we led by our heart, there is alignment at one point or another between you and I, for instance, and we do something together, and then we part ways because that's again our heart that is leading us elsewhere, etc., etc. Every time expressing our own inner truth, our vision, and it grows organically, exponentially, whatever it is that we're focusing our energy and vision onto, and more importantly, in complete harmony with everything around us. So, in other words, there is no more separation with the flow of life. We're completely meshed in and we're creating with it. So it feels maybe a bit up there, but very pragmatically and simply, it's a collection or network of creators with a big C that are fulfilling their visions, whichever they are, together. And it goes so quickly in their implementation, execution, connecting with others, and so on and so forth, that they create marvels around the world. And it is always in that concepts of sustainability, regenerative, and so on and so forth. Why? Because again, it's completely organic. It's not in separation of, right? The creation is along with what the vibration allows or the resonance allows in that moment. And that's so therefore, all these concepts of greed, of, lower level emotions are not there anymore. They're not needed. They're not part of the equation. And that's what I would like to live in. Uh, you know, a world of leaders with open hearts.
I would like to live in that world as well. Let's do it.
Let's do it
You know, I
together.
think 100%, and I think it does all start with us as individuals, right? Like we all have to do the work, do and do it ourselves, and that creates the conditions for something like that. Have you seen any examples of like directionally that type of co-creation and collaboration exist right now?
I see examples of collaboration that are unfolding. Yes, I haven't seen anybody having done the work first and then they build a collaboration at the level we're talking about, you and I. So this would be a world first, what we're doing at this moment, and where it's heart first and then impact. But first, we have to do the work of relieving the mind's power control, need of control, so that we can live the full wholeheartedness of ourselves.
It's really interesting because I've noticed this pattern in a lot of entrepreneurs where, first they're achieving to have some level of success so that they can kind of invalidate low self-esteem, I'm not enoughness. They get that. And then they're like, okay, well, now I'm going to go about impact. And now I got to build something that has the biggest impact. And what you're saying is actually, you got to flip it where you got to do the inner work first. And that creates the impact flows from that.
Yeah, and actually, you can do both at the same time, right? So that's why I was saying that earlier, is that, we have an entrepreneur, he has a vision, whichever that is, and he opens to that journey the way we are shaping it and describing it in this moment. And so he starts his journey towards more impact, doing at the same time, understanding this world as a vibrational one, as his eternal mirror, and he goes through the hoops of releasing this and this and that. And as he goes, then the impact, both financial, social, environmental, starts to work out. That's a grounded entrepreneur. That's one that is successful with a big S, because that journey lasts years. And I mean, yes, I've worked on it for the last 30 years, and people are working with me now. It takes like 3 years instead of, to do the same job. But it takes time. It's practice. It's not a theory. And so let's start our entrepreneur journey. Let's, assemble or have the right priorities. And one of them is to really open up to a new vision of their world, of their reality, and straighten out this relationship with myself, so that at the same time, I can really be the best version of myself and be successful materially, socially, environmentally, and so on. How about
I'm
that?
really glad. Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up that it's not an either or. In fact, it is the business that you're running or the people that you're leading that is the path. And it's just it's almost, to me, it's a shift in attention in a moment to moment basis while you're already doing all the things that you're doing that can be as simple as that can kind of get you on that dual path
Mm.
that's integrated.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk to me about, I know one of your newer projects is this notion of an index where companies can start to understand, hey, what is my level of, coherence, heart-centeredness at my organization, and having that benchmark is actually a first step to help me start to improve it. I think it's an amazing idea, and I'd love to learn more about it.
It's not only an idea; it's actually a reality already. But we're taking the same premises we talked about earlier, and we're bringing it to the business world, so to speak, where we have the ability now to measure the level of coherence of an individual in a team, for instance, and the level of coherence of a whole team organization, linking it always to impact, whether it is financial, social, environmental. And what we have proven already is that a company that embarks on heart leadership, where they not only measure once a year, but also train in heart leadership and practice it, they automatically grow faster. Not only the level of coherence grows about 10 points in the last example, but also the company gets more clients, a bigger community, and so on and so forth at accelerated rates. And it is quite interesting to see, and obviously the quality of the culture is much better. people are so happy to be joining the company, and partnership becomes a competitive advantage for the company. Interesting. To hire people. How amazing is that? So now we're building that index that will index the top 20,000 companies and bring about this core understanding of a company from that angle, and hopefully enabling corporations to invest more in leadership and connecting it to direct impact from a financial standpoint, which is huge because we're paving the way for business to embark into more hard coherence. And that, we're looking to empower a whole sector with that, and bring about a solution that will help any person that wants to, have a better culture in their company, or provide solutions for that, to, have a measurement that makes sense for people.
I love it. It's actually funny. So I sold my last business to Salesforce, and Mark Benioff, he had this talk that he was giving. He's the CEO, and he's like, 10 years ago, someone said to me, the future is sustainability. And we were the leaders, and, we doubled down then, and now we're carbon neutral. And we're one of the first companies that were able to do this in the tech sector. And it was probably my first week on the job. And I was like, Mark, the next sustainability is consciousness. And that's where you need to start to invest and be the leader of. And, I had an idea, and I was like, what if you could try, what if Salesforce started to kind of came up with a way to evaluate the consciousness of the company, which, it's just a word I'm using to describe a lot of the same things that you're talking about. And then, introduce mechanisms to improve that. And, anyways, he didn't respond, but I think a lot of us are trying to figure out, kind of coming to a same thing where it's like, hey, how do we actually integrate this? Because we know it creates better results for us in our personal lives. And wow, if we could have everybody kind of doing this together as a cohesive group and unit, I mean, how powerful is that?
Yes, yes, it's very powerful. We're seeing it nowadays, and that's why I really want to bring these tools to the world in general, because I know for a fact that it works. So from then on, who wants to be part of it, and how can we scale it faster? Because we can impact. I mean, my personal life purpose is to help 1 billion people to open their heart. And so for me, it's kind of a great way to be able to scale. And as a side product or side effect, I'll be able to live my purpose. But the bottom line, it's the most sane decision that a business can take for them to grow.
One of the things that comes up when I'm actually starting a new business, kind of related to this, called Conscious Talent. And it's basically about connecting companies that value this stuff with leaders who are already on that path, bringing them together, because right now that's very hard to do. And it's hard to find those people. But one of the things that's come up is, uh, amongst certain leaders is like, well, I mean, all those practices, things like that, like, isn't that going to eat into the time that they could be spending doing work?
Oh,
And
right.
I'm curious if you've run into that and how you would respond to it.
Oh, that's very easy. Yeah, thank you for going through that. In our case, the method, the format we're using is very light, in the sense the only request we're having when we work with cohorts of people, of leaders, or individuals, the same thing. We ask for an hour every week. That's it. With an hour with a guide, with half an hour of video. Okay, an hour and a half. Sorry, I apologize. With that, and maybe some, very simple, fast homeworks to do throughout the week. That's it. That's only all you need to go through transformations. Why? Because we're trusting that what happens in your day to day is going to help us, help you transform at the same time. And it's not like you need like to stay for a week in a retreat and we're gonna work together and all that stuff. No, it's easy, it's painless. It's really about rewiring ourselves of our understanding of ourselves and practicing more coherence, more cohesion, more resonance in our leadership, and it just works.
It does just work. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing that, I guess for it, the leader of the company has to be bought in. They have to be on this
A
path.
leader
It's
in
going to,
the organization needs to be bought in. Yeah, for sure.
but once one of the reasons I love what you're doing is like, as more leaders start to understand this and start to experience the results for themselves, it's just it's such a common natural side effect for people to want to share that.
Yeah, and there is a huge ripple effect of it. That's very interesting, where you start seeing that actually the investment you make with the first people start to show up in other people's faster. And it's quite fascinating. There's a ripple effect over two or three people, two or three levels that happens on its own as well. So it's obviously, as you said, there is a need of a first buy-in, someone that really lives it, resonates with it strongly, and then after that, it starts to happen again and again and again, faster and faster and faster. So it becomes easier and easier to spread out the whole practice throughout the company.
Amazing. Or no, I could talk to you about this stuff all day.
And so can
We
I.
seem very aligned in our visions and hopes for the future and of this in business. But I want to give you an opportunity to just share more about where, if people want to learn more about your work and some of the resources you mentioned, where is the best place for them to do that?
It's very easy. You go to tapuat.com. That's our website, tapuat.com. And there you'll see the assessment I was talking about. You'll see ebooks that are available on different pillars. You will see we're emitting white papers as well. And yeah, and information about the community an individual can join or our corporate services. So, and our school as well. We train guides to be part of our cohorts of guides so that we can scale into companies. So all that is available on our website.
Well, we'll make sure to link all those out so they're easy to find in the show notes. And Arnaud, thank you again, man. I'm grateful for this
Thank
conversation, and I'm
you.
grateful for you doing this work and putting this out in the world, man. I hope the 1
Thank you.
billion
Thank you.
people becomes a reality.
Yay. Me too. That would be fun. Thank you so much.
Be